My phone cut out, so here we are, part 2. I've only been a few minutes. The knights hadn't made much progress with their binding either. Everywhere they were doing a battle. An ogre knelt over one fallen knight, about to sink teeth into its shoulders. The knight twisted away, gaining a few seconds, but the ogre was turning towards him. Shar regained his feet and drew his sword, and he and Sif faced each other warily. Shar spoke to me, his voice oddly loud. "Can you tame them again, Ella? If not, run and save yourself." The question cleared my wits. "Sif, Nish, ogre friends," I called out in ogress again. "Why do you wish to destroy all of these people? They have food for you, but they cannot give it to you until you do what they want." The ogre stopped clawing and biting and pounding and lunging and kicking and looked at me trustfully. "Would you like to know what food is?" I asked. "Please," Sif said. "The treat they have for you is a dozen baby giants only 6 months old." They all smiled. "But these friends can't bring the feast unless you let them tie you and gag you." Okay, strange. "When they bring out the infants, they'll remove the bindings. So seat yourself and hold out your arms and legs. They will be gentle, I promise." Only Nish remained standing, looking dazed. "Sit," Sif commanded. Nish sat. The tying and gagging was completed quickly. Then the ogres were bound together, treatment that they endured cheerfully, expecting a meal. "Ella," Shar swept a deep bow. He'd grown taller since the last time she'd seen him. "How did you tame the ogres?" His voice was too loud again. "I'm skilled at different languages, and I can't hear you. Oh, I forgot." He extracted something from his ear. "Beeswax." "That's why the ogre's magic had no effect on you, because you blocked your ears." "Oh, that makes lots of sense," Ella said. "Once we sight ogres, we always put in the beeswax. The danger is being caught unwaxed. Shar said that one of the knights acting as a scout had seen me. He reported that a band of ogres was about to eat a maiden when she talked to them to sleep." "How did you do it?" "I told them about finishing school, and they became so bored that they fell asleep." "Truly," Shar stared at me, and then laughed. "Really, what did you do?" It was delightful to make him laugh. He always was so surprised. "How did you really do it?" he persisted again. "I spoke to them in ogress, and I imitated their oily way of talking to make it smooth. I didn't know if I would succeed. They had already parceled me up. I knew which one was going to eat every bit of me already. Sif, that one, wanted my leg." Shar moved his own right leg. "How did they come upon you?" I told them that I'd run away from finishing school. They caught me when I left the elves. They ate the pony the elves had given me. I shuddered. Was finishing school so wearisome that you had to run away?" he asked. "It was quite awful," I said. "And see what it's done to me? I can no longer break a set of dishes by accident. Now I can balance all of them on top of my head and stroll through Frel without dropping a single one. I have many accomplishments." "Are you proud of them?" He was alarmed. I nodded solemnly. I nodded sadly. Wow, sorry, you guys. Strange. I wanted to make him laugh again. "Would you like to know more?" He shrugged, disliking the topic. I went on. "To begin with, I could teach all of those orgs how to eat properly." I seated myself on a large rock. "Observe." I plucked an imaginary napkin out of the air, shook it twice, and placed it on my lap. "Very ladylike," Shar said so politely. I shake the napkin twice. "That's very important," I mocked. "Why?" "Mice. Make sure there's none on there," Shar smiled. There was no mice in our court napkins. You are thinking of spiders. The prince contradicts a lady? I picked up an imaginary fork and began to saw at imaginary food. Your meat is tough. You have low regard for our cooks. Not at all. It should be tough. Don't you know why? Tell me. It is mutton. I don't know what mutton is either. I'm going to try and figure it out. Am I not using a mutton fork? Our manners mistress would believe you are an imposter if you didn't recognize a mutton fork when I don't see one, he was laughing. There's no fork. It's imaginary. It could only be a mutton fork, I joked back at him. How so? See how my fingers are bunched together at the top of the stem? I reached up and caught Char's hand. It was square and large. I extended my index fingers. My finger is the fork. You grasp it, so. I arranged his fingers around mine. His grip was firm. That's the only correct way to hold a fork. A trout fork is managed differently. You know what I think it is? So if you've ever been to like a fancy restaurant or something, they have two sets of forks. So I think a mutton fork is one that you use for the meal, and the, where's the other one? I can't find, the mutton fork and a trout fork, I think, are the small ones that maybe you use for like appetizers or desserts. I think that's what it is. If you know, email me though, because I have no idea. Very curious. I wanted to examine the burn more closely. Oh, whoops, sorry. I turned his hand over to demonstrate. Angry red welts ran across his palms. It looked disturbing. The rope burned you. He pulled his hand away. It's nothing. One of the knights is a healer. What else did your manners mistress teach you? I went to examine the burn more closely, but I continued. Manners mistress knew your father's opinion about literally everything, and his father's the king. She said that he would exile any subject who ate blandmancing. Wow, sorry guys, there's some really interesting words in this paragraph. She said that she would exile any person who ate, and that I think this word is just disrespectful, from a soup bowl. As a result of her instruction, I can never make such a mistake again, or the king might execute me, or exile me at last. The king looked at me and laughed. Well, I'll be king soon, and I won't let that happen, I promise. Does my father have a special spoon for raspberries and one for blueberries? Oh, certainly, I joked, making fun of my former teacher. Why wasn't I informed? You should hire Mistress sorry, guys, I'm having a hard time reading today. You should hire Manners Mistress. She would die of delight to serve a prince. I went on to describe all our mistresses. Writing mistress was the only one who taught me anything worth knowing, I concluded, although it is helpful to know the proper way to behave, so one can decide whether or not to be proper. On the word proper, Char started. I should have introduced you a long time ago to my knights. He called to them, friends, John, Avery, Bertman, Percival, Martin, Stephen, meet our ogre tamer. She is the lass I told you about, the one who speaks gnomic. He had told them about me? Wow, I thought, and I curtsied to them. We wondered when you would remember your manners, the one named Stephen said. Seif made a garbled noise through his gag. So I think the gag is they put like a bind over their face so they can't scream or talk. That's what I'm thinking. So they can't bite too. For a moment I had forgotten him. Char went to the ogre and I followed. So much as you are our friend, so much are we your friends, he said. But we won't kill you unless you force it upon us, so don't make me do it." For an instant, Sif looked dumbstruck. Then he had begun to struggle violently against the binds. The other ogres did likewise, and shrieked through their gags as well. The ropes held, and they quieted slowly. Sif glared at me with such rage and hate that I fell back a step. I held his gaze, however. "You are never going to eat me," I told him in Ogress. "I am not an it, and I'm not your dinner. And how do you like being tricked into doing something that you don't want to do, Telling them that felt absolutely wonderful. I smiled at Shar. For some reason, he blushed. While Shar and I addressed the ogres, the king were busy setting out lunch for all of us. When we were seated, we delayed our first bite until Shar began to eat. It was so natural to him that I doubted he ever noticed. So I think that when there's a king, it's only polite, and they have to do that, is he eats first. I think the Queen of England, the same thing happens. Over traveler's bed, cheese, dried meats, and sweet cider, he told me about his mission to help King Gerald. The king will be glad to see his lot. 8 ogres, and no injuries to us. Sir Stephen nodded at the ogres, who were struggling at the sight of our meal. "He'll be interested to learn that humans can use their magic against them," Shar said. "At least Ella can." Whenever he finds out, Sir Bertman frowned. "How will you convey to King Gerald about everything?" "No need, I will do it," Sir John said. "With the maid's help, we just caught 8 ogres, 6 nights. Never did that before. She is something quite special." "We'll think of something," Shar said. "And yes, I do agree." He blushed again. "They'll have to be fed." Sir Bertman reached for the bread. "And you are the best hunter we have, Sir Bert," Shar said, and the knight's expression lightened. "Ogres can move quickly," Sir Martin said. "It shouldn't take too long to reach the king." "I've been told that they can outrun a horse," Sir Stephen added. "A centaur, too." While Shar and the knights discussed ogre transport, I thought about the wedding and despaired of getting there in time. It was 3 days from now, and I was even farther away from the giants than I had been when the ogres had captured me. If I walked, I would arrive weeks late. And then I remembered Nisha's order not to run away. I could never leave anyway. I needed to do something to get rid of the spell. "Well, we'll have to drag them. And how do we do that?" "The young lady can tell them to go wherever we say," Sir Aubrey said. "She can come with us and keep them tame." "Let the prince tell us what to do," Sir Stephen said. "He knows." Shar spoke confidently. "You, Stephen, will escort the Lady Ella to her destination, wherever that is. Martin and Percival will ride to my father's for assistance. Sir Bert, Aubrey, John, and I shall take turns hunting and guarding the ogres. We'll put wax back in our ears when we are within earshot of them, in case their gags start to slip and they tell us lies." Oh, that's why. Because they didn't want them to tell them the lies that they believe. "I'd rather stay with you, lad," Sir Martin said. "You and Percival are our best scouts. We'll depend on you to get through it quickly." Sir Martin nodded. "The maiden will be safe with me," Sir Stephen vowed. Unless he talks her to death," Sir Aubrey interrupted, laughing. "You don't know him, lady. His speech stops only when the stars shine green in the yellow sky." So, are stars ever going to shine green? So, that's what he's saying. He's saying that he's never going to stop talking. He'll be a better companion than an ogre, Shar said. But Ella, why don't you go back to Frel when you left finishing school? My father is trading at a giant's farm where a wedding will take place soon. He wrote that giants' weddings are interesting. I thought I'd join him there. Shar marveled. You put yourself in such danger just to go to a wedding? He thought of me a fool. He thought of me stupid. And my heart sunk. Sir Bertman spoke. It's fortunate that all the maidens in Kirian do not decide to travel by themselves. We would have work enough without having to rescue them. If all the maids in Kirian could tame ogres, Shar said, we would have much less to do. Perhaps not such a fool after all, he thought of me. Maybe only a little. But I couldn't tell him the truth about Lucinda. After lunch, Sir Stephen mounted his horse, and Shar lifted me behind him. As soon as he did, my cursed complaint began. So, every time she disobeys a curse, she starts to feel really sick, and her heart starts to beat really fast, and she starts to feel really nasty. So that's what's happening. In a moment, I was even going to fall off the horse. The curse wasn't going to let me abandon the ogres. I don't like to leave you in danger, I said, starting to dismount the horse. Go with Sir Stephen, said Shar. We won't come to harm. It was an order. I could go. Thank goodness, Ella thought. My symptoms stopped. I let out a big breath. Shar caught the horse's bridle, which is like the riding... I can't think today, guys. I'm sorry. Like the ropes that you use when you have a horse. Will you soon be in Frel again? If Father doesn't send me back to finishing school, and if he doesn't want me to travel with him, why did he want to know? Did he want me to be? Okay, I'm almost done with this page and then I'm stopping. Sorry, guys, I'm really struggling today. If Father doesn't send me back to finishing school, and if he doesn't want me to travel with him, why did he want to know? Did he want me to be? Why do you ask? He didn't answer directly. I should be back shortly. These maneuvers never last long. He spoke as though he had been on 1,000 of these crazy journeys with ogres. Perhaps I'll see you soon then, and you can tell me about the other ogres you catch. Perhaps you can teach me how to tame an ogre. That's farewell, an ogre. Athunun Sanyang, I said. It sounds evil. It is, I answered, and I smiled, and our horse carried on. That's where I'm stopping for today. I think maybe, and this is my prediction, so I could be totally wrong, but I think that maybe Ella has some fairy qualities in her, because if you remember at the very beginning of the story, Ella's mom were friends of fairies, and so I think there might be more to that. That's my prediction. What do you think? Because even as he said, no one's ever been able to do that, so there's something special about Ella. All right, have a great rest of your day.